Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Spider-Verse Retrospectives. I want to give a brief forewarning before I get into the meat and potatoes of this video. The next few vlogs, I might not be as energetic as I normally am, or maybe I'm just projecting, I don't know. Basically, real life is not being kind to me right now, or kind of my family right now. I'm not going to get into what it is, as it's kind of a big thing going on, and put simply, I'm a little scared right now, but that's kind of why I'm still doing these vlogs, because right now I just need some normalcy to get my mind off all this serious shit going on about this dread and about what could happen. I just need something to ground me, something that I can still do that cheers me up. And in the past, no matter what's happened, I've found some joy in doing these vlogs, whether it might be my main Friday vlog or a side vlog. And as such, for the next few vlogs, I'm just going to be trying to force myself to do them because I need something right now. So if it feels like I'm not being as energetic as I normally am in my previous vlogs, or it feels like I'm out of it, just know it's because of things that are going on in real life, and it's just, and like I said, I'm just doing these vlogs because right now I need something to help keep me distracted. So apologies in advance if it affects the quality of the video, but I hope you can bear with me. But with that said, today we are going to be concluding our discussion on the third Spider-Verse miniseries as we take a look at Spider-Verse Volume 3, Number 6. So, to recap, basically what's going on, if you've been either reading the books or following my videos, then you know that what's going on is that a new web of life and destiny has been weaved by Annie Mae Parker, aka Spiderling, aka the Pattern Maker. However, for whatever reason, there's a corruption is spreading throughout the web, and Annie Mae herself has gone missing. A new Spider Totem, who's essentially become the rough equivalent of the Master Weaver by the name of Spider Zero, has tasked Miles with exploring the web of life throughout the various skeins of the web, i.e. the different parallel worlds of the multiverse, to try and find Annie Mae. And so for the last few issues, we've seen Miles bopping from world to world and teaming up with those worlds' versions of Spider-Man in order to deal with some kind of threat that's going on. Eventually, in the last issue, he wound up going to the world of Marvel Noir, and after teaming up with a newly revived Spider-Man Noir, Miles wound up coming into the possession of the spider statue that produced the spiders that produced the spider that gave that world's Peter his powers. As such, with it in hand, Miles wound up returning to Spider Zero and Loom World with the intent of using it to potentially find Annie Mae, which is where the issue 6 begins. As it turns out, with the addition of the statue, Spider Zero has been able to fine-tune her cosmic spider sense, as we're going to call it, and has been able to locate Annie Mae. And she's finally learned why she hasn't been able to find Annie Mae. While Spider Zero herself claims that her spider sense can track Annie Mae across any world in the multiverse, well, the reason why she hasn't been able to find her is because she's not on any world in the multiverse. It turns out the web itself is what grabbed her. Hold on, I want to look back at the book because I want to be sure I get this right, because hold on, I just want to be sure I got this right. Yeah, okay. Okay, I figured it. Okay, sorry, I just need to review this. But yeah, basically, what's going on is that the source of the corruption in the web was a tangle in the web. Now, the last time the web of life and destiny got tangled was in Web Warriors, and when that happened, it caused worlds to start overlapping with each other, crossing over, cutting them off because they were lost in certain knots and so forth. But basically, this tangle is more psychosemantic. This web, this tangle, rather than causing worlds to overlap, is just pain. Different skeins of the web overlapping and all just kind of running over each other. But the thing is, with all the energy coursing through the web, as a result, basically all the overlapping skeins have brought the tangle to life, and as a result, it gave the web some kind of limited consciousness. And the thing is, since this tangle is the source of all the corruption, the web is now in constant pain. Basically, the very thing that's brought the web to life is also causing it pain, so all it knows is pain, which is why it took Annie Mae. As in its mind, if this is what existence is, if existence is just nothing but pain and suffering, then ultimately it believes that by taking Annie Mae and trapping her in the within the tangle itself, then it can protect her, which as such, but either way, with the location of Annie Mae now confirmed, Miles and Spider-Zero decide that they need to go to the tangle, go actually into the web itself, and, well, get her out of the tangle. But they're not going to go alone, because, hey, throughout this whole miniseries, we've just been seeing Miles teaming up with individual Spideys. I think it's time we get our army together now, and sure enough, Spider-Zero does gather an army of spider people, which in this case is pretty much just every single spider person that Miles has encountered in this miniseries, from the Spideys that he briefly met with in issue 1 to all the spider people from every individual issue, like Spider-Man, the Web Slinger, Penny Parker, Spider-Man Noir, and so on. And to add an extra bit of boost to all this, they've also brought in all of the fan-submitted Spider-Sonas that we've seen up to this point, or at least most of them. Either way, those Spideys are now being brought into the fray as well. Also, apparently, the main universe Peter was brought in as well. Again, we don't actually see him in the battle, but based on what is said in later comics, and it's implied that Peter was there as well. We just never saw him. The point is, Spider-Zero and Miles have gotten a small team of Spideys to go right into the web and find Annie. The only problem is, the instant they arrive, well, Spider-Zero's cosmic spider sense allows her to attune briefly to the web and feel its pain, understand what it's going through. And she can sense that the web is not exactly happy that these people are there because, well, it knows they want to save Annie, and like I said, it thinks it's protecting her. So, to act as countermeasures, it ends up opening a portal to, well, Takeo Yamashiro's Earth, and begins summoning monsters from the Iron Cross army to try and halt the Spider Army. There's just one problem. It's a spider army versus monsters. And as a result, the instant the monsters show up, Miles just pretty much tells the army, the assembled Spideys to just charge forth and kick ass. And so that's what they do. And it's fun to watch. It's fun to read. It's not really too intricate, but we do briefly pop in on all the Spideys as they're fighting side by side. And like I said, the Spider team consists of not only the Spideys that we've seen so far in the miniseries, but also also most of the Spider-Sonas that have been submitted. And I won't deny, it is cool seeing them and the Spiders from these other worlds just kind of fighting back to back like that. And it's cool seeing the abilities that have been described in the back of each of these comics being used. Like Night Spider, we see her using her light powers. We see the Seamstress. I think that was her name. Let me go back and check it out. I think that was her name. Yeah, oh no, the Spinster. We see the Spinster using her hair like a webbing. We see, again, I'm sorry, I didn't remember all this. We see Spider Requiem as she uses her puppets as attack dogs. We see that pirate Spider-Man whose name I forgot. Hold on, let me go check again. I'm sorry. I want to make sure I remember all of their names. Again, it's in the back of this one. I know it. No, yeah, Sea Spider, we see him just swashbuckling and kicking ass. We even see Spider Sting as she used some of her venomous webs to hold off a monster. It's just cool seeing them all kicking ass together. But of course, even throughout all this, things are still kind of going, the monsters are still getting a bit overwhelming, so even with Miles and Spider-Zero taking advantage of the carnage trying to get close to the tangle, well, the monsters are still getting overwhelmed. Well, the thing is, you gotta remember that all the portals are leading to Takuya's world. So of course, if you have an army of monsters battling it out with spider people, then who better to call than that world's resident Spider-Man? And sure enough, Takuya comes flying in on Leopard, ready to just kick ass as he starts helping the Spider Army just beat back the monsters. It's pretty cool though. I will say this, it's not as cool as the previous times. I think at this point maybe the charm is worn off. It's still nice to see him, I admit, but when you've had him be the big damn hero in 2 other Spider-Verse related storylines, the grandeur kind of wears off the 3rd time. But again, still cool. I dig it. And hey, all hands on deck and all that crap. But point is, with the other Spideys dealing with the monsters, it allows Miles and Spider-Zero to get close to the tangle. And ultimately, they realize that it's going to be a process getting Annie Mae out of the tangle. As what's going to happen is that Spider-Zero is going to try and actually communicate with the Tangle using her cosmic spider sense. Of course, and basically in her distraction, basically when the web gets distracted enough, Miles can try and seep in through the web and grab and pull Annie Mae out. This is, of course, very risky, as the web itself is in pain, and basically Spider-Zero will be feeling that pain, and it's not even clear if Miles will be able to even pull Annie Mae out of the web itself, as if he goes in, he might get stuck in it, as he might get stuck in it too, but unfortunately they don't really have a lot of better options here, so they kind of go with it. As such, Spider-Zero immediately begins attuning to the web, and yeah, like I said, it just feels nothing but pain and hurt, and it's afraid. And it's afraid because while it hates the pain, it doesn't want to just cease to exist either. And so basically, it's just afraid of everything. And basically, the Spider-Zero keeps trying to talk the web down, tell her that they need to let Annie Mae go, that it needs to let Annie Mae go because, well, if she stays, she'll probably die. But the web is not letting go. It does not want to let her go. It's essentially scared of not only of exposing her to that pain, but also just being alone, and it's basically just doing whatever it can to hold on to her. However, thankfully, Spider-Zero is able to distract the web enough so that the Tangle begins opening up, and so Miles is able to just dive in and start trying to get to the center of the cluster, center of the Tangle. But to try and ease the web's consciousness, Spider-Zero decides to show her some of its pain, to let it know that it understands, to try and empathize with it, and so as a result, we actually do briefly sorry, but either way, yeah, we do briefly learn about Spider-Zero's backstory. And I do say briefly, as it turns out, the reason why she's a spider without a world, her world was destroyed in the incursions. Yeah, remember in the build-up to Secret Wars and how even after the multiverse was destroyed, Earth 833, the home of Spider UK, was one of the worlds that was not brought back? Spider-Zero's world was another one of those lost realities. Basically, in the build-up to Secret Wars, her world was lost, colliding with another universe, and was destroyed. The only reason, however, that Spider-Zero herself was spared was because just before she could be wiped out of existence with the rest of her family, well, she got pulled away to take part in this job, which is a little weird considering how far back the incursions occurred. Because again, you have to remember because the incursions happened kind of around the time when the first Spider-Verse happened, and then after the and on top, and when the multiverse was restored, that would mean that even if her world was still destroyed, that means she was still out there in the multiverse. I think you can make the argument, I guess, that what happened was, timey-wimey bullshit. Because the thing is that the Web of Life and Destiny clearly does have time travel capabilities. It's how we were able to get Spider-Man 2099 back. It's how they were able to send the Superior Spider-Man back to his proper time. Basically, the Web of Life and Destiny does not just allow dimensional travel, but also time travel. So I think the idea is that when the new web was being spun and it needed a keeper, they essentially just reached out across time and space and managed to find Spider-Zero just before her world was destroyed in the incursions. So that would kind of explain why we haven't heard of her up until this point, as she was essentially plucked out of one time stream and put into another. Because the thing is, when the multiverse was restored, it technically isn't the same multiverse. It's, again, complicated comic book stuff. The point is, she was just pulled out of a point when the multiverse was destroyed, and then brought back to another point when the multiverse was restored, though sadly her world was not one of the worlds restored. Again, it's confusing timey-wimey bullshit, so you can still find it problems, but I can at least buy that time travel is the explanation. That she got pulled out of one point and then put in another. So, there you go. My point is, Spider-Zero does understand the web's pain. She understands the loss. She understands loss and heartache, and basically, just as every other Spider-Man in the multiverse deals with loss and pain and internalizes that and turns it into their fuel for, fighting bad guys and helping people, Spider-Zero takes the pain of losing her world and tries using that to kind of push forward into doing her job as the new pseudo Master Weaver. So, but in the meantime, through this empathy, essentially, she manages to connect to the web enough that when it realizes that what they're doing will essentially cause it to cease to exist, it kind of wants, it doesn't, it says it just doesn't want, it basically, Spider Zero promises that she won't leave it, that it will, that even if, even though it's afraid of being alone, she'll stay with it. And sure enough, throughout all this, Miles does manage to get to the center of the tangle, and he does find Annie May just kind of interlocked with the web. As such, he manages to wake her up, and with great effort, but the pair of Spideys manage to claw their way out of the tangle and arrive back to the surface. As such, with Annie May now free of the corruption and the tangle, she's able to use her powers as the pattern maker to, well, fix the tangle, unweave it, so to speak, and while doing this, she ends up also opening portals for the other Spideys because, well, while she appreciates their work, their services are no longer required, and so she just sends them each back, and since she sends all the other Spideys, Sans, Miles, and Spider Zero, back to their respective worlds. And so finally, as this all goes down, she finally starts managing to unweave the tangle and, well, heal the web. However, in the midst of all this, Spider Zero gets kind of thrown into the cosmic whatever, and so as the tangle gets undone, the web's consciousness also starts to fade as well. As after all, while that was, like I said, even though that was the source of the pain, that was also its mind. So without its mind, the web is just kind of turning back into just, well, a web. And so basically it just keeps talking about how it doesn't want to be alone anymore, but how the pain is going. If there's no more pain, no more pain, and Spider Zero just kind of smiles at this, but before she can fly away into the cosmic aether, Miles manages to grab her and pull her back to ground, essentially saving her. As such, with Annie May back, essentially, it's just a wrap-up. Hold on, I gotta check the back of the book. I want to be sure, because I need to remember, because I want to make sure I remember everything here. Yes. Hold on, I'm sorry I'm doing this. Yeah. But yeah, essentially, Spider Zero talks about how the web was not really inherently evil, it was just afraid and alone, but there's a lot of people like that on the multiverse, and well, that's why there are a bunch of spider people in the multiverse, so that when there's trouble, when people are in pain or hurting, they're there to help. And so, basically, with a thoughtful hug between these three Spideys, well, it's time to send Miles home as well, as he's done his job. He's helped restore the web, and so the comic ends with him being dropped back off at Earth 616. So all is well that ends well. So, oh yeah. By the way, sorry, there are still 3 more Spideys we need to talk about. As yes, even the final issue has fan submitted Spideys, and the first is called Spider Manly, who is an axe wielding barbarian Spider-Man, which. Look at this thing. He's fighting little green goblins. That's amazing. I love it. Then, of course, you have the Web Witch, who is actually a sorceress spider totem, whose magics allow her to walk the skeins of the Spider-Verse, and in turn she allows her to also kind of form, I want to say, contracts with other Spideys. I don't mean like actual contracts. I mean like any Spidey she encounters that their symbols are implanted on cards, and if she finds a world that needs her help, she can summon them to her aid. And then finally we have Recluse, a version of Spidey from a future version of New York that is under martial law by S.H.I.E.L.D. So, you know. But, yeah, they're all three are cool. Spider Manly's a little dumb, but enjoyably so. I like hold on again. I'm sorry, I just said her name. I love the Web Witch. I like the Web Witch, as I like the concept of a spider person who actively explores the multiverse and calls them to their aid. And Recluse, actually a pretty kick-ass concept, and I wish we had seen him in the book, and we had seen him in that final battle, so whatever. But yeah, that's the final issue of the 3rd Spider-Verse miniseries. And so, thoughts on that issue and thoughts on the miniseries? Well, the issue is enjoyable in its own way. Much like the other comics, it mostly feels good in just seeing all these different spider people kicking ass side by side with one another. It is like, it's not, like I said, it's really genuinely awesome to see all these fan-submitted Spideys that we've been seeing in the back of each of these issues just teaming up and working alongside all of these, I guess, official spider people that we've met so far throughout the miniseries. We see them fighting back to back, which I like because it showcases that despite these not being official spider people, they're still Spideys. They're still out there fighting the good fight, doing the things that doing all the things that you would expect Spider-Man to do. And despite their origins, they're all still worthy of wearing the webs and still kicking ass alongside every other Spider person in the multiverse. Which I dig. I like that. It's essentially just a nice way of saying that every Spider-Man is canon in that regard. And it kind of gives you it feels nice knowing that, because it allows you, because it essentially ensures that, well, no matter the Spider person, you can still have fun with them. And I dig that. It's nice. And I think it's a great way of kind of paying respect to the fans and kind of allowing them to feel more included by having their Spider Sonas be taking part in the final battle like that. And which, again, it's good stuff. As for the actual core of it, you know, wrapping up the whole storyline that this miniseries has had, I find that to be interesting. Not horrible, not amazing, but still genuinely interesting. For starters, I will say this. It does annoy me that the Tangle doesn't really have a source. Like, we don't really understand where the Tangle came from or what created it. It's just a tangle in the web, which I find confusing because, like I said, the last time the Web of Life and Destiny had tangles, it caused entire universes to overlap with one another and potentially cross over. So it feels strange that the newest tangle doesn't do that. Now, to be fair, between storylines, the Web of Life and Destiny kind of has had inconsistent stuff with it. Like I said, in the first Spider-Verse storyline, the web itself could affected the entirety of the multiverse, and to damage the web would be to damage the multiverse itself. And we saw that even in Web Warriors. And then likewise, you get to Spider-Geddon, where destroying the web only really cuts off interdimensional travel. So, I don't know. It still feels weird and inconsistent, especially since in this new Web of Life and Destiny, essentially, it's supposed to operate the same way as the last one, and yet when it develops a tangle, it creates a corruption across the web. But rather than have that corruption, I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. Basically, it feels weird that this new tangle spreads a corruption across the web, rather than just causing the worlds to intermingle. Now, to be fair, the idea is supposed to be that the corruption itself was the source of all the problems that we've been seeing in every one of these issues. That the corruption is starting to have an inherent effect on each of the worlds, and just making things darker, and that part of the reason why Miles needed to be involved in each of those stories was because without his assistance, things could have gone very wrong. If Miles had not arrived when he did, when Aunt May wound up duking it out with her Carnage-possessed counterpart, then things could have gone terribly. If Miles had not intervened when he did with Penny, she might have been killed by Kraven the Hunter, and Daredevil might have died. If he hadn't intervened with the Web Weaver, then he might have been killed by the Scorpion, and likewise with Spider-Man Noir, then maybe Madame Swarm would have kept the idol, and Spider-Man Noir would have been killed by the Nazi Maid of Bees. My point is, I think the idea is supposed to be that those problems were all kind of caused by the corruption in the web, and that by Miles being there, it essentially tipped the scales enough in the Spidey's favor that they were able to still come out victorious. But it just feels strange that this tangle causes corruption in the web, whereas previous times they caused worlds to overlap. Again, I'm just going to chalk this up to the inconsistent writing that the Web of Life and Destiny seems to be rife with when it comes to in-between stories. With that said, though, I do actually like the idea of the web itself being the source of the corruption. That basically, the corruption itself, that basically this tangle appeared in the web, and it started causing pain across it, but at the same time, because of all the energies coursing through the web and how intricately all the strands got tangled up, it wound up creating it kind of gave the web a limited consciousness, and since the very thing that brought it to life was also corrupting it, all it knew was pain. And so, as a result, it felt that it needed to protect Annie from that pain, and on top of that, with how badly it was hurt, it just didn't want to be alone. Which in a way, I find intriguing. Yes, like it was said in the comic, this is a limited consciousness, but it's a simple consciousness. It only knows pain and suffering, but by that same token, it wants to protect people from that pain and suffering. Hence why it took Annie when it did, because it felt that it didn't want her, because it knew that with the corruption spreading, she might be caught in the middle of it, and combine that with its own feelings of loneliness, it wanted to protect her and have something akin to a companion. So it took her whether she wanted to go or not. But likewise, I kind of like that what ultimately allowed them to free the web was by easing its pain. In a way, it was kind of like an assisted suicide, which I don't like saying at all, but that is kind of what it was like. As for one thing, when Spider Zero made contact with the web to try and empathize with it and have it listen to her, she shared with it her pain. And I'll give credit where it's due. While it did annoy me in issue 1 that we didn't really know anything about Spider Zero, I will say this little brief bit of backstory, I think, does a good job at showcasing what sort of hell she's probably going through up here. Which I'm still a little upset that we don't get more to the story or learn more about her as a person beyond that. But the thing is, this is good. I will say that the backstory is suitably tragic, and the thing is, while I kind of started poking holes in the whole timey-wimey aspect of her being pulled out of her reality just as it was destroyed in the incursions, and then arriving in the future after the multiverse was restored, and yet her world was one of the worlds that was lost, and it's weird. But imagine that. Imagine just you somehow get you see the world dying, and then you get pulled away because you're destined to be this watcher of a new web of life and destiny, something you probably didn't even know existed before. And then learning that at some point that the reason why your world died was because the multiverse was just systematically being destroyed. And now imagine with me, if you will. Here's the thing. Like I said, after the events of Secret Wars, the multiverse was restored, but not all worlds came back. A lot of them came back, a good chunk of them came back, but there were some worlds that stayed lost. The original Ultimate Universe was just gone. It was just erased, never came back, and while a new Ultimate Universe has respawned recently, it's not the same Ultimate Universe. The continuity is completely different. So I would even argue that that's not even the same world. It's just a different world that happens to share the same nickname, so to speak. And then likewise again, let's go to Billy Braddock. While his world, Earth 833, was one of the worlds that was lost in the original incursions. And then after the multiverse was restored and the Web of Life and Destiny was repaired, his world was still gone. It never came back. So some worlds were still clearly lost in the events leading up to Secret Wars. And sadly, so think of it like this. Imagine you're in Spider Zero's shoes. You get pulled into the future just after seeing your world on the brink of destruction, seeing your friends and family just starting to be wiped from existence. And then you learn that someone fixed all that the multiverse has been restored, that these countless worlds across time and space are back, and yet your world was not one of the lucky ones. It was one of the rare few that didn't come back. How much pain would you have to go through knowing that so many worlds were brought back after such a huge cosmic event, but yours wasn't? Just how much pain would you be carrying when you learned that? And as a result, while this is only a little snippet, and when I first read the comic, I felt it was still not a lot to really get a grasp on Spider Zero as a character. It's honestly, when rereading it now, I realize it gives you a very good grasp of just what she's dealing with as a character, as a person. Just how much she knows that she is supposed to be attuned to this web, and she clearly is trying to do a good job in that regard. She wants to be a proper master weaver, so to speak, and do her job. Because the thing is, there are countless other worlds out there, countless other Spideys, and the thing is, a good chunk of them are her friends. She probably does have a close relationship with Annie, since Annie is the one that reweaved the new web, and based on what we see in the flashback, it's probably Annie that saved her from her world's destruction. But the thing is, thing is, she still has to carry that pain every day. And like all the other Spideys across the multiverse, she has to take that pain and funnel it into doing something constructive, something beneficial, something good. And every day she has to just try and work through it. It's gotta suck. And quite frankly, that little snippet and learning that, honestly, I think it makes her a lot more of an interesting character. Do I still wish we see more of her prior to getting her spider powers? Like, I wish yeah, I do. I wish we could have seen more of her life on her world. As while it is tragic what happened to her, it would have been, I think it would have been cool if we just learned a little bit more about her world and her place in it, her relationships, who she was close to, or even if she had spider powers prior to being pulled into the future. Like, was she her world's resident spider person, but then the incursion occurred and then she got her powers augmented? Or did she get her spider powers just as her world was dying? I still would like to learn more about Spider-Zero's backstory. I really would. But but honestly, this I think is enough to at least still, get your attention and make you kind of appreciate her more as a character. So, again, I'll apologize. So yeah, I'll take back what I said about not knowing a lot about her. While I still would like to learn more about her backstory, this little snippet I think is a good way of grabbing your attention. And likewise, I like that, like I said, I like that she uses that to empathize with the web and essentially, like I said, ease it into its loss of consciousness, so to speak. As like I said, while the web is in constant pain because of the tangle, this tangle itself is also the source of its consciousness, and so it's just as afraid of the pain that's caused from it as it's just as afraid of losing its existence as what it's equally afraid of losing its existence as well as the pain itself. Basically, while it does not like the pain at all, it also does not want to just fade away. And so it just kind of wants to defend itself. And so likewise, the idea of Spider-Zero pretty much just being in constant contact with the web as Annie Mae is rescued and uses her powers as the pattern maker to start to send everyone back to their proper worlds and start untangling the web. It feels like, in a way, as an assisted suicide, because throughout it all, Spider-Zero does not leave the web's side. She just continues talking with it, easing it through this, and so as the pain begins to fade and its consciousness along with it, Spider-Zero is just still there, talking to it, letting it know it's okay, I'm right here, there's no more hurt, you'll be fine. In a way, it's a little tragic. It's in a way a little tragic, but at the same time, it's just kind of beautiful seeing Spider-Zero trying to empathize with the web itself, and just let it know it's all right, we're here, we'll keep you safe. I do like that. It's actually pretty sweet. In the end of the episode, and by the end of the comic, when Spider-Zero does lament how the web was just afraid, wasn't really evil, ultimately, it ultimately feels a lot stronger when Miles confirms, yeah, but that's why we're here, so that no one has to suffer like that. Again, it's good stuff. I dig that, and it kind of does reaffirm, and in a way, it does kind of reaffirm the whole multiple spider people thing, as basically, there is not always going to be pain and suffering across the multiverse. People are going to get hurt, and people are always going to do something stupid, or basically or someone will lose something that they care about and will fall. But that's why the spider people are there, to raise them up, to let them know it's going to be okay, we'll protect you, we'll keep you safe, to be a helping hand, someone that you can lean on, rely on. It's, in a way, it's actually pretty sweet, and it's, again, kind of helps reaffirm all the different spider people we've seen, that basically no matter what corner of the multiverse you'll find yourself in, there's always going to be a Spider-Man, and there's always going to be a Spider-Man there to protect you. It's good. I like that. It's pretty good. And I think the end, and as such, while the ending to this comic I don't think is as great as it could be, as it is mostly action, I do still think there's enough emotion there and drama and some honestly good character stuff that I do feel that this is still satisfying of an ending. And so on the whole, it's still a good issue, and overall, I think it's a satisfying ending, and I dig it. But, with that said, what about my thoughts on the miniseries as a whole? Again, it's a fun miniseries. Here's the thing. One complaint I will have for this comic is, well, while I do like seeing Miles jumping between all these different parallel universes, it does kind of suck that, essentially, to have that we kind of had to ignore what would lead us to this whole plotline in the first place. Because, like I said, when I talk about Spider-Man Noir, the plot thread about finding Annie Mae in the multiverse and figuring out what's causing the corruption in the web, it's ignored. Throughout the whole miniseries, that plot point is just ignored. It feels like it's only really introduced in the first issue to just essentially give us a reason why Miles is jumping between all these random parallel universes, which, again, I can kind of understand considering the whole point of the miniseries, but at the same time, when you introduce that plot thread and then just kind of put it on the back burner, it feels kind of weird, especially when the final issue just kind of says, "Oh, we found her." So, like, again, it feels like that plot thread should have been like touched on a little bit more. While Miles does talk about it every here and there, ultimately it's not the main focus of the book. And the thing is, I feel like that needs to be like a pretty big important plot thread. After all, Annie Mae is the pattern maker. She's the one that rewove the web after Spider-Norman blew it up. So I feel like that looking for her should be important. Yes, I understand each of these worlds needs help, and Miles has to be there to help those worlds' resident Spideys. But again, it just feels like that all of that was pushed to the forefront to just kind of. But all that was pushed to the forefront, while the main plot point that led us to this whole miniseries existing at all is just kind of pushed in the background and kind of ignored. So I am going to call that a flaw. It feels like we should have spent more time kind of showcasing Miles looking for Annie Mae, and as a result, it annoys me that that plot point was only brought up in the first and last issues, and was only really further explored in issue 5 with Spider-Man Noir. And that's only because Miles needed to get the statue in order to try and get to the root of the corruption and figure out where Annie Mae was. So, again, I'm going to consider that a problem. With that said, though, the miniseries itself is pretty good. Like I said, here's the thing. Like I said, while it does annoy me that the important plot that with Annie Mae was pushed to the back burner for the majority of the miniseries, ultimately that wasn't what this miniseries was about. As I mentioned, this miniseries was essentially created to cash in on the success of Into the Spider-Verse. And, well, as a cash-in, I think it works. Basically, unlike with in a way, this story feels like a companion piece to both Into the Spider-Verse and the original Spider-Verse story itself, as unlike the previous Spider-Verse themed events, we're not really getting all the Spider people in the multiverse together to fight some big grand threat. What's going on is essentially a search and rescue mission. Something is corrupting the web and took Annie Mae Parker, and so as a result, it's Miles' job to find her and heal the web. Which, again, that's a big thing. But it's not gather all arms kind of deal. It's literally just something is going wrong and we need to investigate. And so as a result, the stakes don't feel as dangerous this time around. We're not facing a foe that threatens to kill every single Spider-Man out there. It's just a simple look for this person thing. And so as a result, every issue in the miniseries is just Miles going from world to world, looking for Annie, and teaming up with those world's resident spider people, which I think is really all you need. I think it's a good idea to have that be your central focus this time around, because with Into the Spider-Verse, we were able to peek in on other Spideys, and that kind of helped bring to light the whole creating your own Spider-Sona thing, since, infinite multiverse of possibilities. Anybody can wear the mask, and any world, anybody can be Spider-Man. So basically, just try and cash in on that by having a mini-series where Miles just goes from world to world and meet more of these other Spider people, I dig. I think it works, and I think it's a good way of cashing in on the success of Into the Spider-Verse without kind of being into your face about it, as ultimately the story itself is just fun times. Like I said, while it does annoy me that the major plot points are pushed to the back burner, that's not what we're supposed to be focusing on. The main focus of this miniseries is just to see Miles go from world to world and team up with different Spider people. Which, like I said, every issue kind of did that well. It was fun seeing him fighting alongside Spider-Man to face her Carnage-possessed counterpart and eventually an evil Miles. It was fun seeing him kicking ass side by side with Penny Parker to beat Kraven the Hunter. It was fun seeing him shooting webs alongside the Web Slinger when they were duking it out with a Scorpion. And last issue with Spider-Man Noir, not only was it nice to see Spider-Man Noir revived, but it was cool seeing him and Miles working together in his world to take on Madam Swarm. I like that. It's just enjoyable fun. Even the final issue with all of its emotional stuff, it still felt really damn cool to see not only all the Spideys that we've seen so far in the miniseries teaming up and working alongside each other to save Annie, but also have all these fan-submitted Spideys working alongside them. Showcasing that again, like I said, despite where they came from, they're just as worthy to wear the webs as any other version of Spider-Man out there. I love that. It's fun, it's great, and it just celebrates what makes Spider-Man cool, what makes the Spider-Verse cool, which, as a result, I just think that as a result, I think the miniseries is just cool. It doesn't need to be something grand or divisive or dark or twisted or have it be a fight for survival. It literally is just a group of heroes just working alongside each other, kicking ass, and just doing their best to do good wherever they can. That is the heart of this Spider-Verse miniseries. The Spideys aren't teaming up in a battle for survival. They're not teaming up because of necessity. They're teaming up because they're heroes, and ultimately, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. And no matter what world you call home, it's echoed across the infinite echelons of reality, and every Spider person out there will follow it to a T. I love that. It makes me I love that. It's just it's just fun. It's just fun. It's fun seeing Miles team up with all these different Spideys. It's fun seeing him explore these different worlds. It's fun seeing these stories. It's fun seeing these little snippets and even the final issue with all of its emotional weight with the web and all that was still fun to see all the different Spider people working alongside each other. It's just on the whole a fun miniseries. Nothing too grand, nothing too fantastic, but it's just all around fun. And quite frankly, it's just probably one of the best Spider-Verse stories as a result. So, if you haven't read this miniseries yet, I highly recommend it. You will not regret it. It's fun. It's just chock full of so many entertaining stuff that, quite frankly, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you weren't reading it. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, apologies if I felt like at any point I wasn't really giving my all for this, but like I said, doing the vlogs does kind of help me out a little, and I feel like it has eased some stuff a little. It hasn't completely gotten rid of my fears or my worries, but at the very least, it gave me something positive to do. So I'm still glad I did it. But like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video regardless. And while we are done with this miniseries, the Spider-Zero era is not done yet. We still have one more miniseries we need to look at before we can move on to the next era afterwards. And well, since Miles was the main character for this one, I think it's time we see another Spider person take the leading role. So next time we meet, it's time we leave the Spider-Verse alone for a little while as we dive headfirst into what I call the Gwenverse. Well, no, it's not what I call it. It's the name of the miniseries. My point is, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hopefully see you on Thursday. Take care.